I got really interested in Bitcoin. I saw a really clear path for it. And then Jeff, who's someone I really admired at this point, was really excited that like this guy was coming to Mountain View to like present his project, and at the time that was called Ethereum, and that was Vitalik, right? I didn't know who the hell Vitalik was. I didn't care, but at the time I knew that Jeff thought he was really important, right?
First thing is, why are we doing this? It's very, very difficult to understand what you do, how you do it, and why you do it also. What's your motivation? Some people say you invest. Some people say, okay, you are a coach. Everything, whatever you can do. Connecting people, power networker, billionaire whisperer. But actually there's a lot more going there. And why all of these roles that you have, and what exactly does it mean to just like know you closely?
Yeah.
So we'll keep it casual. We'll just chat around. Probably we know that you are in Web3 and you've been doing all this for a long time, but we need to hear the story,
the origins,
right beginning, and then we see how it all happened, right?
Sure.
So what prompted you? Your brother got you.
How did it all start? So kind of back in 2013. My brother, he was buying Bitcoin to buy weed, right? So that was the origin story.
That's
right?
everyone's story.
Yeah, exactly. So he just found Silk Road and started buying weed on it using Bitcoin. And so I had a corporate job at the time, and I have a very high risk tolerance. So I was like, okay, cool, like buy me one, right? And so I bought my first one in 2013.
That was what price?
Let me think about this. I think it was $100 for one.
Oh.
Yeah, $100 per Bitcoin. And so that was my first time I bought one. And then after that, I immediately kind of quit my corporate job. I was in Boston, Massachusetts, in the East Coast, and then went traveling. So I was at a corporate job. It was a $20 billion company, and I met with the CEO, and I was like, listen, I can't do this anymore, right? Because it's a cool story. Like, I was very successful there.
Yeah.
When I joined the company, my territory hadn't hit its sales number in 5 years.
So you were doing sales?
I was doing sales.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And for 5 years, they hadn't hit their number, and, I was young, so it wasn't an option about whether you do it or not. That's my job, right?
Yeah.
So within I joined in August, and we managed to still hit the sales target within like 4 months. So I did some good work there, right? After 2.5 years, I was just bored. And so, dealing with corporate kind of bureaucracy.
Yeah.
So I met with the president. Everyone, all my managers were all scared. And I just decided, like, I'm out. I'm quitting. So I met with him for about 2 hours. We were laughing. Naturally, I just know how to connect with people. And then he agreed with me. He was like, listen, if I was at your level, I would do the exact same thing you're doing now, because this company's way too big now, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so then I quit. I quit on a Tuesday, booked a flight for Thursday to Colombia, a one-way flight.
Oh.
Right?
Good place to go.
This is the perfect place for like rediscovering yourself, right? After fighting your managers for like
everything,
for every inch, right?
Paradise.
Yeah. So I just went straight to paradise. Straight to paradise. It was great. So in Colombia, while traveling for 6 months, I happened to meet a girl in a hostel. So we were hanging out on. What are those things called? Like swings? What are those places you like lay down on?
Hammocks.
Yeah. So we had 2 hammocks next to each other. She had a Stanford hat on. And so we just started talking. And over about a month, we became good friends. And so at the time, I had two paths I could take. Number one was I was dancing salsa a lot because that kind of kept me.
Wow.
It gave me like a sense of purpose, right? And then secondly, I had this opportunity to follow this path of entrepreneurship, right? So it was like, okay, two paths. One, I could go to Cuba and like take salsa dancing there.
That sounds tempting.
Yeah, it was. It really was. That was the move. That's kind of what I was gonna do.
Yeah.
And then the other option was she told me, she was like, oh yeah, like my boyfriend created this startup. And I just thought like some shitty startup, like in the East Coast, really conservative, so you just expect everything's a scam. And she was like, yeah, my boyfriend Brian has this startup called Coinbase. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever, it's some shitty startup. Ironically, that's where my brother had bought the Bitcoin from. I didn't even realize it. And then so essentially she invited me to San Francisco, right? And for a funny reason, I thought Medellin was the most beautiful city in the world. She said she understands why I think that, but she thinks San Francisco is a little better.
Whoa.
So I called bullshit. I was like, no way. And she was like, no, seriously, I think it is. So she invited me to come out to San Francisco, hooked me up with an internship at her friend's company that was already in 500 startups. It was in a batch of 500 startups. Yeah. So I was commuting from Mountain View up to San Francisco to participate in that batch. And so my origin story is kind of when I first moved to San Francisco, it was only because of Coinbase and because of Kelly, who I think of as like my guardian angel. And so I lived with her for a month and used to kind of like third wheel with her and Brian when we go out to events and stuff. So that was my Brian Armstrong. That was my early origin stories.
So that's the first billionaire that you whispered.
Yeah.
In their ears, right?
Yeah.
More such stories along
So then after that, I ended up moving into a hacker house, right? Where there were 60 people living inside of a house. Think of it as like a modern day, frat house, right? But for young adults. Yeah. And I couldn't have asked for a better experience, right? It was called the Negev, and there were 60 people living there. Half the people there were technical, the other half were entrepreneurs. Plus, there's like a Venn diagram over there. And so I was again looking for my purpose, right? Because I'm 20.
And these are all early, young people, early 20s who are living here to make it big in the valley.
Yes.
Everyone's just at it.
Everyone's at it.
So that energy's...
Yes. Everyone there is naturally entrepreneurial, right? If you think about it, anyone who's willing to live, it was a filthy place. Yeah. Absolutely, right? Yeah. Like we had 2 people per room in bunk beds, and the size of the bunk bed times 2, right, in diameter. If you think of the radius is what the bunk bed, the diameter was twice the size. That was the whole room, right? Wow. And so we had 60 people in that. So about, I think 20 people per floor, right? 3 floors, and 2 bathrooms per floor, right? And so there's some every wild story you can imagine occurred there, right? And it's what was extra cool about it is it's really hard to kind of build strong connections as we grow up, right? As we get older after college. Mm-hmm. So at the time, let's see, it was 2014. I was born in 1987. So let's do some math. I was like 26 or 27 at the time when I moved in there, right? Mm-hmm. And I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Mm-hmm. I had no plan. For an Indian kid, that's all the shame in the world is brought down on you from your parents, right?
So essentially, when you took this path for your family, you went rogue.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you were like off the charts now.
Completely.
Fully. You're not invited to family functions anymore.
Kind of. Maybe. I mean, I was invited, but it would be like with this cloud of shame everywhere I went. I could see it in my dad's eyes, even because he just I credit him. He worked really hard to get to where he is today, and had this path that he wanted me to take. but I just chose to go on a totally rogue path. And so to him, it's like he spent $250,000 on my Northwestern degree.
Education.
Yeah, education, which is top 10 school. He checked all his boxes, but that wasn't the path that I wanted, right? So it was tough for him. And so, yeah, during this time...
And you studied psychology?
I studied psychology and chemistry, both, right? Psychology, I like to joke, was... chemistry was to get daddy's love, and psychology was so that I could remain sane.
But, I mean, all of this, you left all of this and went into the insanity that Silicon Valley is.
Yeah, exactly.
And that to crypto.
Yeah.
That's 10 years ago.
Yeah. This is 10 years ago. It is actually 10 years ago,
Not mainstream at all.
8 years ago, yeah. I mean, no, you're completely right. Because now, at this point, I'm looking to figure out, okay, there's all these people around here that are either technical or entrepreneurial. And I was coming from a corporate background, right?
Yeah.
So over those 6 months, I was unlearning a lot of bad behaviors, like corporate behaviors. And so I just kind of started looking around at what everyone was doing, right? Catching the pulse of stuff. Mm-hmm. And there was one guy there, Jeff Cavins, who I was repulsed by. Fully repulsed. The first time I met him, I hated this.
This is going online, okay? Jeff is going to...
Yeah, Jeff's a friend. He's a great guy.
Yeah, no good. This is what we want.
Yeah, no, he's a friend. I ended up investing in his company. So at the time I was repulsed by him, right? And then after a while, it's kind of like looking at the sun when you're like, why is this guy so annoying? Like, why do I hate this guy so much? And then I started realizing that he was just so passionate that I thought he was crazy. And passion and crazy are kind of the same thing in a weird way, right? When you're already in this house of pre-qualified people. Yeah. So I started leaning in more to what does he have to say? What is he saying? And he was really passionate about Bitcoin, right? So then I started learning about Bitcoin. I went into this kind of, I have ADHD, so it was most of the time I'm unfocused, but when I find something that that just catches my attention, I went into a rabbit hole of just research. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of we literally had a basement with a movie theater there, dark, no windows. I went down there for 48 hours. And I just started watching every YouTube video I could find at the time on Bitcoin and the history of money, the history of how the Fed was created, and maybe a little bit of my conspiracy theorist inside of me too. Got me really energized. And I kind of came out of it super passionate myself, kind of angry about how the monetary system works, and I got really interested in Bitcoin. I saw a really clear path for it. And then Jeff, who's someone I really admired at this point, was really excited that this guy was coming to Mountain View to present his project, and at the time that was called Ethereum, and that was Vitalik, right? I didn't know who the hell Vitalik was. I didn't care, but at the time I knew that Jeff thought he was really important, right? So, kind of side note. What my job here at the house was, as I was trying to build my network, being more of a business guy like you yourself, I started kind of earlier inviting entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, to the house to speak for what I was the director of Tech Talks at the Negative. Yeah. So every week on Wednesday night, I would invite a new entrepreneur to come speak at the house, right? Mm-hmm. And just teach everyone about what they're doing, kind of like a fireside chat. And so I would do interviews with them one-on-one. And so I'd already been doing this for about, 8 to 10 weeks already. Mm-hmm. And then when I found out that this guy Vitalik was coming to Mountain View, I was like, okay, cool, let's go meet him, right? Mm-hmm. So I went to meet him, and Jeff was too nervous to even talk to him, right? At the time. And I mean, there's another whole funny story when I first saw Vitalik, right? You just see this kid. You really park the car, you start walking out, and you see this. It's kind of like A Beautiful Mind or something, where the movie where you walk in, you see that there's leaves on the ground that are kind of spinning, and you see this kid there who's just in his head, looking at the leaves, not interacting with anyone, and you can kind of see him doing math in his head and creating equations for how the leaves are moving. You just see it, and you're like, That's the guy. Right, this is the guy.
Something.
Yeah, and so at the time, Ethereum had, I think, like 40 meetups over the world, but it was not very well known at all. So he gave his speech about Ethereum to a group of nerds, like probably like 20, 30 people in a room. And afterwards, I went right up to him and just kind of talked to him, took a picture with him, invited him to come speak at the house at the Negev. And so he agreed to do that. And so he ended up connecting me with Gavin, because Gavin was next to Gavin was like a sidekick there at the time, right? And Gavin Wood, yeah. Even though he wrote the entire smart contract logic for Ethereum V1, right? So essentially, he built that in a weekend, by the way. I don't know if people know that, right? So a lot of credit goes to Gavin for Ethereum even launching. I mean, now that we've moved to Ethereum 2.0, it's finally evolved, but Ethereum V1 was all Gavin, and with Vitalik being the poster child of Ethereum, and he used to write for Bitcoin magazine as well, so he's a very good writer. He's a very good writer. So credit goes to Vitalik as well.
Yeah.
So then Vitalik gave his talk. I talked to him, invited him back to the house, and he ended up coming the next Wednesday. And then both him and Gavin, and a third friend, they all started they gave the talk there to a group of about 50 people there, and I was like trying to convince everyone that that Ethereum would change the world, and I was like the fucking crazy person, like I'm passionate about it myself.
Computer of the world.
Yeah, distributed computer of the world, and everyone just thought Bitcoin was a scam. So at the time, this is pre-Ethereum.
A little greedy part of me wants to know, just relish in the idea of what was the Ethereum price.
Oh, I mean, this was even before Ethereum had launched.
Oh,
this is pre-launch. I was I was ready to give Vitalik 5 Bitcoin at the time. I was like, just take my money now. Let me figure it out later, right? Yeah. But it hadn't been launched yet, so they weren't ready. So it was cool. I got to hang out with them early days, and they ended up even sleeping over at the house for like a week. And so they took over the basement, and Vitalik had his own room upstairs, and so I remember bringing him breakfast and stuff in the morning. Like he'd just wake up and start working on his computer, and it was cool because everyone then, at the time, Ethereum had a lot of co-founders. I don't know, 10, 20 people, and there was a lot of kind of bickering and bitching.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everyone knows this.
Yeah.
But how can 10 co-founders work on something? Is it?
No, I mean you're right, and that was part of the thing.
See, this is some kind of consensus as well.
Yeah.
Right? These many people arriving at consensus on what goes in the code.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It was clear that this was the next big thing, and according to everyone in that room,
the smartest people were working.
were working in it. But there was a lot of egos involved as well at the time, early days, right? So the part of why I'm bringing this up is it was really nice that people there were trying to protect Vitalik. It was obvious because he was like a 17-year-old kid who was like the face of Ethereum, and I guess still is today. But they were protecting him more than anything, right? So that's why I was actually communicating to Gavin.
Why did he become the face of Ethereum?
Why did he?
Yeah.
Because he was like the prodigy, right? He's like the autistic prodigy 17-year-old writing for Bitcoin magazine, very, very eloquent, and everyone, if you look at why are memes big today, it's because everyone has to rally around some personality, right? And so he had that personality that people just that brought people together, right? I mean, how can you not support a 17-year-old kid, right? Literally, right? And so he also had that innocence to him, right? Which helped because it cut through the the scam perspective of what Bitcoin was for drug dealers or whatever, or weapons sales and whatever other things people thought you used for it. So yeah, that's kind of how I got Vitalik. As big.
But there must have been some incidents at the house when they were living for a week. You said that.
Sure. I mean,
crashed.
yeah. I mean, there were times Vitalik was like drooling on the couch, and I like woke him up. I was like, "Hey, man, you want to go like sleep upstairs?" He's just like very casual. He doesn't care where he is. I don't think he let it get to him at all. There were times that I was hearing conversations about like between Gavin and his friends about like the high level conversations they were having with banks at the time, because this is pre ICO funding, right? And so we went to some meetups together, and I was actually trying to be hired as Gavin's executive assistant.
Oh.
Thank God I didn't in some respects, because I'm like, that's not my skill set at all of like being organized and all of that.
Yeah.
But really what I was looking for was finding a way to get on board, because I wasn't technical. The infrastructure hadn't even been built. And so it was like, what is my role
You can't
here?
sell anything as yet.
What do I do?
Yeah.
Exactly. There's nothing for me to sell. Coming from conservative Indian parents, just the fact that I'm in this room is kind of crazy enough,
Yeah.
right? Like I talk about. I mean, my perspective is, as a coach, is have a commitment to failing until you fail at failing, right? So eventually, success just kind of happens.
You have to explain this. No, it's a big statement.
Yeah, what I mean is, so many people are like focused on getting 100% on exams, for example, right?
Yeah.
And I think that kind of makes you a sheep amongst everyone, amongst the herd. Everyone's just trying to do the exact same thing blindly without realizing how is this going to apply to anything in life, right? And in real life, the first time a baby tries to stand up and walk, even a deer of any animal, they're going to falter. They're going to like have weak legs and fall over. Now in society, we refer to that as failure, which is like brings a cloud of shame and has all this other unnecessary baggage that comes along with it. So in reality, I call that like strength training. It's like going to a gym and kind of figuring out how many more reps you can do. And so, right? And
this is what I was reading a book, and they call it this cognitive fitness.
yeah.
Like, have you done enough mental stress taking? Literally,
Yes.
stress in dosages over a period of time to increase your tolerance.
Yeah.
So that in normal situations you're just very free and happy afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. It's very grounding, right? It's very grounding and calming to like kind of
Beat the shit out of you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Fighters will tell you this too, right?
Yeah.
Like professional fighters, they know what it's like to get punched in the face. So they are the most peaceful people you'll ever meet, because they know they've been so grounded, and so this also goes for life and for entrepreneurs in general, right? It takes an incredible amount of pain tolerance to succeed, which you know, right? Yeah. And on top of that, there's a grounding that comes with that, right? Of like willing to step up and do the work, the grunt work that isn't sexy, right? And so, yeah, there's a huge.
If you fail, you have to start from scratch again.
Yeah, exactly.
Zero.
Yeah.
Again, zero.
You just start. And the analogy I give to everyone is like 15 years ago, before we had the cloud, of like writing up a paper on Microsoft Word and the power goes out, or Word fails and all your work gone, rugged completely. You just start from scratch to like write a paper again. Yeah, this is painful. It hurts.
Yeah. And so what my mind is drifting towards is, you've seen this when Ethereum was being created, right? The first baby steps. And of course, like Vitalik might be a prodigy. All of these might be genius co-founders coming together and do stuff. But you saw all of these things happen there.
Yeah.
And now you coach a lot of founders, and these people come to you for very different reasons. Sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's work, and various different reasons. Sometimes they don't even know why they're coming, but they know they need help, so they come to you. But then, do you see common threads between what they faced and what people are facing even now?
Interesting. Between people from the entrepreneurs that I've seen while they're building, it's interesting point, because a lot of my clients struggle with imposter syndrome, right? And imposter syndrome is one of those things where people don't believe they're good enough.
And
to even be
especially immigrants or
yeah,
maybe first generation children who born here, and they may be more than.
No, I mean, you're totally right, and you think about it, like we're taught to kind of follow like this path of becoming great and perfect and doing great in school and then getting a kind of like I don't know, successful job.
Designer babies.
Yeah, exactly. Designer babies, exactly. And so in the back of our minds, we're always hearing the voice, kind of like a tape recorder playing in our heads that we've heard 1,000 times for anything our parents have ever told us, right? And so naturally that causes imposter syndrome because we've always, anytime we say, hey, Dad, I got, let's say, a 90 on my exam. No, you won't hear anything about, no, good job. It's just, where did you lose 10%? So anything you say is X, you always come back with X plus 1. And that becomes how we believe ourselves to be. Right? So it's a great path towards misery. Like, and I mean that. I joke because like people don't realize that that's what we're doing to ourselves, right? Yeah. And so it's a good path to misery. And so yeah, I think there are a lot of kind of similarities between my clients and kind of the early people in crypto because it's just about a lot of people have Peter Pan syndrome, right? Never wanting to grow up. Let's see, what else? There's also just this like insane sense of optimism, I would say, right?
So there's imposter syndrome and there's optimism.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird, right? It's very weird. Well, funny thing is, it's a great analogy because it's almost the before and the after, right? Where imposter syndrome is always at the beginning, and for people that have imposter syndrome, I would say like very simple things of like just show up. 80% of the game is showing up, right? Number 2 is the consistency of it. Number 3 is just kind of what's this word I always say when people get punched and you get back up? What's that word? Being resilient. Exactly it. Yeah, being resilient. That's kind of what it takes to be there. And optimism is really like the thing
takes
that
you to the moon.
Yeah, it really is. Because that's because when you're pitching something, when you're trying to raise money, it's mainly off of a concept, right? There isn't a lot built. So you have to have an insane amount of confidence in yourself, in your product, in what you're envisioning in your Peter Pan world to be able to express that in a way that, regardless of what people come back with you at, because you have to deal with a lot of rejection, that it doesn't phase you.
Of course. Every day. But do you think like this is also what crypto struggles with, right? At one end we are struggling for thousands of transactions per second, and on the other end we are already telling the whole world that this is it, this is your future. Extremely optimistic about the amount of problems that crypto or Web3 generally can solve. May not be that high, right? It's still quite far away as well. So you're struggling for survival, and then in your mind you're still aiming for that moonshot. Yeah. But that's what makes it possible as well.
Yeah. No,
many founders take that leap.
It is
very, very hard, but still.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying because there's a practical element to it, right? Where you almost have to be a little bit impractical to believe you can actually make that difference, because if you actually look at it from a pure logical perspective, it doesn't make sense. The odds of failing is pretty high, and so like you have to be a little illogical and be coming from a place of like.
Or maybe earlier you said you generally have a high risk tolerance.
Yeah.
So is this about that you're failing so much here, you're applying for jobs, you're looking at boundaries, you're networking, you're doing 100 other things, maybe doing some side project, job, but what you're doing is you're increasing your risk tolerance slowly as a founder, because as let's say even Ethereum founders, all of them whom they are extremely good at math, but if they were to sit and calculate the probability of Ethereum doing well, becoming what it is today, that would have been very less. That would have been discouraging,
Yeah,
right?
you're right. I totally agree and that's why there's something here that defies logic, right? In a beautiful way, right? Because like the more that people fail, kind of back to like what we were saying earlier about failure, the more people fail and become kind of accustomed to failure in general. If you look at it, each instance of failure, actually, you can look at it in two ways. One, like one of my favorite LinkedIn quotes, I never fail, I either win or learn.
Yeah.
Right? It's a brilliant way of kind of reframing our brains, our minds to think like, it's not failure. Failure is if you give up and walk away. That's a personal choice, right? And so a lot of people fail themselves by not continuing to stick with it. And so with the resiliency, right? So each time failure is occurring, you're actually learning, in my opinion, 10 times more. For me, I learn 10 times more when I fail than if I win. If I succeed, then I did kind of what I was supposed to do. And there isn't much learning that comes from that, right? So you're right. Once someone has a commitment to failure, it kind of acts as a domino effect. You get a small domino can hit a bigger one, and a bigger one until the one is like the size of a house or a wall or something, right? Where you build a tolerance for it, but you're learning that much more each time. And so when it comes to like,
it's exponential.
It's exponential.
It's your breadth and depth.
Yeah.
Of knowledge.
Exactly.
And experience.
Yeah, fully. It's exponential growth, and so I don't know. It caters to me for my my excitement level for pushing the limits, pushing the edge of what you can and can't do, and
so your risk tolerance is high, and when you coach people, you try to get their risk tolerance up a little, or maybe.
Interesting question. Let me think about this. Yeah, I mean, naturally,
that's what
I do. I really do.
Right, yeah.
Because what does coaching really come down to? Coaching is just imagine. Let me think of it this way. Think of a good analogy for what coaching is like. Something that would involve fear, right? What's a good analogy of something that involves something that we don't do out of analysis paralysis or something like fear-based? I was thinking of like cleaning out the fridge, but there's not much fear in there.
Going to the doctor, some people just don't go.
Because
they know something's wrong, but I want to avoid it for as far as possible.
Yes. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
That's a great analogy, right? Risk tolerance, what our minds are like going to the doctor. Okay, so I'm going to go with a different analogy. I'm going to go with this, right? It's kind of like cleaning out the fridge, right? Each time that I work with clients, it's like cleaning out the fridge. Why? Because everyone has something in their fridge, in the back of it, that's like that's just kind of like maybe old or a little moldy or something, and there's a little shame that comes up over it. It's there. You don't want to look at it. You don't want to pick it up and throw it out. So you just kind of keep avoiding it until it becomes moldy, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I think of as my coaching sessions with people. I go there. I help people kind of let them empty out their minds.
Mental Botox.
Yeah, it really is, right?
Yeah.
In like, the only thing about that I would say is Botox has a bit of a connotation of Cloroxing.
Yeah.
I don't think that's not my goal.
Yeah.
My goal is to help them create space. Create space, because we fill in all the space in our fridges of our minds just with with junk, complete junk. Our own thoughts, our own fears, our own perceptions, what other people said to us. Like the influences of people who are telling us not to keep doing what we're doing. So eventually what happens is, once you clear out enough out of the fridge, all you can hear in there is like the motor when it's on. And that's your internal pulse. Like your mind, where you're feeling, like kind of when you're in the zone, when you're just working and you don't care, that's when you kind of channel information in, and you're just working naturally. Doing it out of your own passion, and that's when everything aligns. And it takes a lot of work to get there.
You emptied the fridge, so now you can get fresh fruits.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and it requires like routine cleaning, right? So that's why I think a lot of people can benefit from. Think of how many people go to the gym routinely and have routines around that, like for physical exercise, And how many people use that in their minds?
Also,
People don't have personal coach trainers for their minds. That's kind of what I am.
They also need resonance, right? I could think that I have imposter syndrome. I understand. I want to correct it. But it's such a subconscious thing that I'll keep doing it over and over and over and over again, and I won't even know that I'm doing it.
Yeah, it's
so
true.
if there's someone who comes and points and says, "Hey, why did you do this?"
Yeah.
It sounds to me like you're playing this out. Oh, okay. Next time this happens,
Yes.
there is someone to tell me.
I completely agree. This is like blind spots, right? Like everyone has blind spots. The analogy is in a car. There's certain angles where you can't see things behind you. Everyone has blind spots. So that's the other thing that I help identify for clients. It's just to help them name kind of what is your blind spots. Everyone has them, right?
What's yours?
Mine, I would say,
No.
Well, I'll name it. I'll even name it. Mine is like organization. Yeah, like getting organization oriented. Not my strength,
I wouldn't say blind spot, but you don't want to do that.
It's not my strength. Yeah, you're right. Actually, that's not my strength. So blind spots are things we don't even know about ourselves.
Yeah,
right? You're right. So maybe that's not the best.
I'll have to ask someone else that.
Why?
Rachna.
Yeah. My wife.
She would know your
my blind spots.
Blind spots.
Yeah. Exactly. See, I can't even name my blind spots because there are things I don't know about, right? But that's where my coach helps me figure out what my own blind spots are, right? And so the more that once we know what our blind spots are, we can do something about it, right? So I'll say one of mine is I also struggle with having my own imposter syndrome, right? So even think about even to sit down and do this podcast with you, it
took half an hour.
Took some work, right? For me to make sure everything was perfect, perfectionism, make sure it's bulletproof, so no one can give me shit. But that's one of my blind spots, right? And so you're acting as my coach in helping me kind of do this, and I appreciate that.
Chilling with you.
Yeah. But that's what I mean, right? I'm creating the languaging for it, so people don't think of it as some power dynamic thing. It's more of me learning from you. And with open arms.
And we do that with everyone. This is just more structured.
Exactly. And especially because for entrepreneurs, right? The more they grow, the bigger they grow. It's very hard for them to keep on the persona of things are going great for the company, right? It's literally like parents to kids. You don't go to your kids and tell them, hey, Pareen, I'm really going to struggle with rent this month. Maybe you could cut back on lunch. That's the worst parenting ever, right? So as entrepreneurs, even things aren't always great, right? And part of what you have to do is keep on a good face. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, of course.
I hope I'm not speaking
all the time. No, of course, you know that.
It's better. It means more when it comes from you than me.
I mean, of course, every founder has bad days, and there are frankly more bad days than good days.
Yeah, exactly.
And you are always pissed at someone who's not done something that they committed to do. Lot of things to be figured out. Opportunities are always just way too many.
Exactly.
We know that we can't take all of them, so it's a prioritization problem. Someone to work through that, and then there's personal life, and if there is one, by the way.
Yes.
if there is one.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Exactly. And so all of these kind of we're human, right?
Yeah.
So naturally all these things I think of them as kind of barnacles. Barnacles are those things that show up on rocks in the ocean.
Yeah.
And so it requires us to mentally brush our teeth or clean the barnacles off the rocks because it's important. If we don't clean, then they end up calcifying, and the worst case scenario is you have no release for it, and it changes your personality, or
it also leads to a very vicious cycle of negativity.
Yes, negative thoughts.
Almost leads to it's like a bad trip.
Yeah.
Once it starts, you can't make it into a good trip.
Yeah.
It's just not possible.
Yeah. No, it's very true. And so the more that kind of what I do what I was saying is with entrepreneurs, there aren't a lot of opportunities to authentically express what those pains are, right? What's the struggle in life? And being humans, we can compartmentalize to a certain degree, but there's got to be some release from it.
So sometimes we can't even tell this to our families.
You can't tell your family.
They will be like, what the fuck, then why don't you just quit and get a job?
Yeah. This is something that...
are you stupid or...
Yeah.
Why do you keep complaining about this and still
Yeah.
want to do this, right? Because
Yeah.
they can't understand why this thing happens, that you are struggling but you still want to do it.
Yeah.
Keep doing it, keep doing
Right.
it. You probably have no choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is what I love working with Indians for, particularly, right? Because Indians that come here from to the U.S. from India, right? They're all entrepreneurs, first of all, whether they started a business or not. Just coming here by themselves, take work.
It's a big risk.
Big risk.
Yeah, definitely.
And so when things don't go well at work, inevitably, cultural differences, dealing with a boss, new management structure, realizing that things aren't super hierarchical, you can't go back home and tell your parents and complain.
Yeah.
Right? You can't do that because
That's a failure.
that's considered
That's a
failure in
failure.
their eyes. You want to make sure that they're happy. There's probably a reason you're here in the first
Yeah.
place,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If you're one of those
some money back,
entrepreneurs.
something,
Yeah, you're there to contribute
help
to them.
family, yeah.
So you have to put on this persona of telling them that things are great. Now, on their end, they think you're here popping bottles, like of champagne, going to the clubs, partying it up, throwing money around. But that's not what the lifestyle's like, right? So there's very few people you can get.
Yeah, so you're living in a house with 60 people, but you still want to. Instagram is like Saturday night.
Yeah,
That might just be the only beer in the week.
That's it. That's it. And that's the therapy, right? That's like the way people
There's a dissonance of some kind that happens that you have to clear as well.
Yeah, and so it's hard to find, think of it like going for a hike, where all of a sudden you get outside after being indoors for too long, and you taking that first breath of fresh air, taking in the ambiance of the trees around you. In California, we're lucky we get to do that. And you're like in the mountains in India, very similar. Yeah. And that's the feeling that I aim for my clients to feel at the end of each session that we do, because
this is what you mean when you say I make space.
Yeah.
I feel there's a space that lets them chill for a while.
Just chill. Just feel relaxed, not be stuck in their own thoughts, and actually be able to focus on more important things internally that keep them happy. And so, and I go through this myself. Whenever I come out of my coaching sessions, my wife, Rachna, she can sense it. She's like, something's different with you. You feel a lot more calmer. So I think... I think everyone could benefit from that.
Yeah, of course. And it seemed, at least to me, I don't know how it's perceived here in the valley, but in India, generally you think that coaching is meant for billionaires. It's meant for CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. It's meant for maybe athletes. It's meant for musicians and people who are really like top 0.1 percentile in their field, right? Then they want to get better. But it's essentially a very universal thing, right? Maybe like people couldn't afford it, maybe there were no coaches before or something like that. There's this impression that's been created that coaching is for extremely rich or extremely talented people.
Yeah, like the ultra rich.
Everyone has trauma. Everyone has those barnacles that you talked about.
Exactly, and I think it's really more of a mentality, right? Not about how many zeros you have attached to your name. Of course, you have to have like a baseline amount that you can be able to pay for this. So it is to a certain degree privilege. But with the middle class in India, like kind of rising, it's very affordable now, and so.
I think the number of people who want coaching goes up, then the number of coaches go up as well, right?
Yeah.
So that's how somewhere it'll be, the market will ensure that it's affordable for people.
Exactly. I completely agree. Okay, so with respect to India, I would say, like most of my clients are probably within the US, but with respect to India, it's more of like a perception towards it, right? Because there's this negative perception towards mental health in general in India, and I think that's kind of bullshit and toxic, right?
Yeah.
So with respect to the concept of coaching in general, kind of uniformly, like universally, I think coaching is a mental state of mind. That's it. That's the mental training, right? And so the earlier people get started with it, it's kind of like the more space they have in their brains to like follow what they really want and find what they want and find happiness earlier, right? And so it affects everything in every way, personally, professionally, and everything in between. Because had I not found a coach, had I not done my master's in psychology or psychotherapy, I wouldn't have found my wife today, Rachna, right? Like, I think she's amazing, and I never would have believed I was good enough to have her. And so going through the hard work of like kind of diving into my own blind spots and struggling through them is what made me come out even stronger.
You've done this for years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Before getting to a stage where you feel like now I'm a different person.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That took a lot of effort.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're fighting with your identity, to go through this work. So it's not for the faint of heart, right? I think it was really hard work. And I think it's a very similar journey to one that entrepreneurs take. Yeah. Because if it were easy, if it were simple to do, everyone would do it. If it were simple and easy. So it's only kind of meant for people that
most
can
people's lives
handle
are
it.
fucked.
Yeah, that's true. Most people are unhappy.
The good part is to just first accept it.
Yeah.
And then start improving.
Exactly.
That, right?
But there's that
if you don't accept
I mean, that's literally.
That's great.
If I were to like oversimplify what I do with clients, because I think if you can't explain something simply, you don't really know what you're talking about, right? Yeah. That's my perception. Yeah. That's half of the battle. It's just getting people to admit themselves what their problems are. Yeah. That's it. Just admit what it is, that there is a problem in general. Because a lot of time we're fighting it defensively, right? Yeah. And once we can just kind of allow for it, admit that there's an issue, realize there's no shame around it, then the work begins. And so, like, I admire all of my clients, seriously, for having the courage to come to all of our sessions, because it's hard work. And part of my job is to remain neutral during our sessions.
Just show up.
Yeah. Just show up. I stay neutral, and I just I'm a witness to them, and as much as I do coaching, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So a lot of my work is listening, right? Yeah. Giving people an opportunity for them to kind of speak their mind freely without having to say anything, without judgment. Yeah. So it's like these little alignments that I do over time make a big difference. There's that analogy, if you point a laser at the moon, right, and you're directly head on, and you move it like a centimeter to the left or right, over time, by the time you go and that laser reaches the moon, it'll probably be hundreds of thousands of miles away, just because of that slight shift you made, right? And so early on, the faster you can catch your own blind spots.
Trajectory,
yeah. The trajectory totally changes for your life. And so
that's what I'm saying. Like at some point in time, many of us have felt like I'm a different person now. Yeah. Suddenly, like something shifted right in the mind. What we can't really explain that very easily. It's very hard to define or put into words, but that shift happens. Yeah. And the earlier it happens, the better it is in life.
I mean, totally. I completely agree. I really agree with that. And a lot of people, for myself included, the goal is just learning how to get out of our own ways. Stop tripping over our own shoes. Learn how to tie our shoelaces metaphorically, right? And the earlier we can get on that path, the better off we are. And that's kind of why you don't have to be a billionaire or a multi-millionaire to do this. This is like the earlier you catch it.
Cut the time down that it's going to take
to get there. Because most of the battle's in our own minds. So once we clear all that out, now you can just work kind of, in a nice, peaceful way that like is unadulterated. It's very simple and in flow, and that's kind of why it's more of a mentality thing than the amount of money that people have.
But you went through this with a therapist. Do you wish like it would have been much better or worse, or how would it be if you had, instead of a therapist, a coach who guides founders per se, right? Or not just founders, but people who are working in this crazy high speed, very uncertain industry like crypto.
Yeah,
it's extremely hard, right?
It is.
We keep seeing that crypto founders become millionaires all the time. But they're taking an insane amount of risk.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Yeah, so Um, I do. I do wish I would have had a coach earlier, right? So I did see a therapist for a short, brief period of time. And she was there and she was great for helping me like open up my emotions and to be able to admit that, I was going through, at that point I was going through a gambling addiction that I had, right? Straight up, right? I was in a tough place mentally, and the way that I was dealing with it was just
you're in crypto.
gambling.
You
Exactly.
have gambling around.
Exactly.
A gambling problem, yeah, of course.
Right? And so she wasn't able to help me with that, honestly.
Oh.
She wasn't, because she wasn't able to hold her boundary, which is okay. She, like, I give her all the credit. She introduced me to one of her colleagues, who I would say acts as my coach now, and I've been seeing him for 2 years, and he was immediately able to handle that. Mm-hmm. And yes, I'm so happy for this guy that he's been in my life, because he helps me with everything professionally and personally, right? And he's able to stay there, help me learn my boundaries, and even that thing that I mentioned to you yesterday. Like, these are all epiphanies that I have, where I as Indians, we struggle to say no to people, where we get I don't know, like guilt tripped for using the word no, but every time we say no, we're actually saying yes to ourselves. Right, like little tidbits like that, where that helps you build your self-confidence over time. Mm-hmm. And so those little tidbits that have helped me as a coach, like, yeah, I'm very happy and appreciative of the path that I'm on now, and I know I can make a difference in people's lives. And so I try not to think too much about the past, about what I could have done or anything, but I'm just kind of happy with where I'm at now, that that I have a coach, and that I'm owning the fact that this is my value to the world, right? And so...
And you're admitting that there's a problem.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the main thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And after this journey, you've seen a lot of other founders as well.
Yeah.
Or you know...
When you say admitting there's a problem, what was the context for that?
That right now, you're not only working on it, but it started by... First admitting it takes a lot of courage.
Oh man,
to admit it. Privately is different. You are admitting it on camera.
Yeah,
right?
no, I completely agree.
A different level of courage is required to say that.
No, I totally agree that yes, admitting that I had a gambling problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. You're right, man. That was half the battle. Like, yes, and it was tough and difficult, and I'm in a great place now. I really am. I couldn't be happier. And now I have the right structures in place to help me kind of avoid all those pitfalls of like gambling that I had in the past. And so all of that is things I learned.
Are you calling your wife structures in place?
Yeah, she is completely. The wife, the therapist, they all are like very helpful.
Yeah. That's true, definitely. But after this whole Ethereum journey happened, Ethereum took off. It didn't stop there, right? You were, that's when you were investing.
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
right?
So I took part in a number of ICOs in 2017 that made it really big. And
you passed on some crazy ass gems as well.
I did. I was just showing you the SAFT today for passing on Solana at 4 cents in 2018. Like, I still had it.
Yeah.
I just happened to find that in Telegram in a conversation I got from Raj. So yeah, I mean, again, a fail, right? A fail, and again, you don't actually fail until you leave the market, until you choose to leave. That's failure to a certain extent.
I think for most people like you are crazy. You will not leave until you are broke or you are dead.
Yeah.
Even when you are broke, probably you will not leave.
Exactly.
So unless you are dead, you are not going to leave.
It's true. It's very true, man. You're right. I get it. Like, that's the high risk tolerance, right?
And it's some kind of, maybe I would say, addiction to being on the frontier of things. Saying, what's the cutting edge today?
Yeah.
What's the cutting edge today? Right?
Yeah, I mean,
so you went from Ethereum to what? Polkadot, Solana.
So Ethereum, Polkadot, Solana, I mean, Chainlink, Synthetics, Decentraland, a number of other ones that I can't remember. and then what happens is sorry, I lost my train of thought with what were we just talking about right before?
So, not just Ethereum, but you've seen all these founders.
Yeah.
My idea was not to just highlight the amount of money you were making.
Sure.
That's okay. That's one part of it. You've been here for a long time, but also, like you have that telegram from Raj. So you've seen Raj when he was not Raj. Today Solana is Solana.
Exactly.
But not when they were doing their seed round.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, you've seen him.
Yeah.
Maybe not work with him, but you've seen these founders.
Yeah. I mean,
there.
I've worked closely with Raj, with Greg from Akash Network, with the Alchemy team. And I would say that I acted as a bit of a coach to all of them. And it was really cool. It was a big part of the journey of kind of learning, like, to see the grit that they put into it day in, day out, and just to be there and do my part, right? To help them kind of... I was helping more from a sales perspective of, like, strategy-wise, but also opening a lot of doors for them, introducing them to the crypto community, because there's also that transition between Web 2 to Web 3, right? Where I was helping, I mean, both Greg from Akash and Nikhil and Joe from Alchemy, they're all like Web 2 guys moving into Web 3, right? And so even Raj. So yeah, I've seen them grow. I've been there, worked with them, and yeah, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to have been there that early and like, have that vantage point.
When you look back at all of these things and see your own life in parallel, because you are growing as a person as well, right? While all of this is happening, and you're investing and you're working with these people, and you are networking in the community, right? When all of these things were happening in parallel, did you ever think that you would reach a phase in your life where you are just like as happy as you are today? Could you have asked for this life?
No, I don't think I ever imagined.
So it's beyond your imagination.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
It brings makes my hair rise. Those goosebumps. Seriously, because like, there's a lot of pain in figuring out my own path along the way, right? And dealing with my own, I guess you can say, set of failures. And so, I never would have expected that I'd be where I am today, and I couldn't be happier. I really couldn't.
That actually,
I feel privileged and lucky.
Come on.
I mean,
you worked hard.
I worked hard to be here, but when you kind of like, this is like the flower that's emerged from like the pain, of struggling to fit in.
Exactly.
And another one of my blind spots with having ADHD and learning how do you communicate to people in a way to help them explain how I behave, why I behave, because it can oftentimes come off as confusing, right, to people who don't understand. And so I've also kind of learned a languaging for that, to explain like how I operate and how I've come to see that as more of a superpower now instead of like a disability or whatever it's labeled as.
That's amazing. Now, with this entire journey, your life, I mean, it's been great. Now it's amazing. Why do you do this? Like, why do you want to coach these people? Clearly, you don't need the money. That's just like something that you get. But why do you get out of bed and talk to these traumatized people? That's what you're doing, right?
No, I mean, this is the meat of the question, right? And even of this podcast. And I would say part of the reason that, actually, I'm getting a little distracted. I'm going to ask them to quiet down over there in the background.
We can edit this, right? Or maybe not. Guys can light up one and come back.
Hey guys! I'm trying to work before this. Thank you.
No problem. You guys need all right. Do you mind maybe re-asking that question again? Because that was...
Yeah.
Or I could just...
No, I can. So, like, your life has been great. Now it's really amazing. Why do you do this then? Like, why do you get out of bed in the morning and talk to all of these traumatized people? Because that's what you do, right?
Yeah.
People with trauma come to you. And,
Right.
you take that trauma in some way also, right?
Yeah.
And
It's true.
like,
It's a
money,
full contact sport.
clearly you don't need the money.
Yeah.
That's okay, it's there on the side, right? And you don't need to do this. You could just be chilling all day or investing all day or, attending VC parties every day. But you choose to do this. Like, what motivates you?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question because that's like the meat of this conversation, in a way.
Yeah.
And why I do what I do is I've always I think of myself as like a first principles thinker, right? And I think at the end of the day, I get the most pleasure out of not seeing how many zeros like I add to my net worth or lose, right? It's more about helping people get a sense. Having been on this journey myself, I know how difficult it is. I know how many battles that we have going on in our own minds constantly, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's my gift to the world, honestly. That's my gift. I'm able to kind of sense that in people. I can see, I've done enough training in this as well, that I can call it from energy healing or all the way up to like, mental mind gymnastics training. I have a way of naturally realigning people. And it's fun for me. I feel like I get so much more satisfaction out of doing that than any type of, than any investment I can make or any party I can go to. I like helping people grow. And I grow out of that, grow with them. We're on like a journey
So it's
together.
a mutual relationship in that sense. It's not someone's teaching someone something.
No, I don't believe in a hierarchy thing, right?
Yeah, the relationship.
If I have anything to add, right, it's literally as simple as being there, listening more so people can trust their own voice, and coaching them, aligning them over time when I realize, like, okay, you're a little out of alignment. I can sense this, right? In addition to that, I can bring all of like my connections and people that I know and help them.
Which is the whole industry.
Yeah, which is the entire industry as a whole, right? But like, why I do what I do is because it gives me a lot of pleasure to see people kind of grow, get out of their own kind of way, and help them through a lot of these issues that I face myself. Like that's the gift.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, this is because you have been through all of these things.
Yeah.
And of course, like it takes really at least blood, sweat and tears to try and do anything in this crazy industry.
Yes, and there aren't a lot of books you can read about this.
Oh yeah.
Right? Think about this. You and me are both not,
Yeah.
We're smart, we're very intelligent, but we're not book smart, right? Like, I think that's partly why our romantic partners happen to be very book smart. It's a very good counterbalance. But for us, there's no book to this. There's no path to entrepreneurship. It's literally about like figuring out your own path.
See, if there were a book, this industry wouldn't be a frontier industry.
Exactly.
And we wouldn't be here.
That's exactly
it. It's not that exciting anymore.
Yes, that's exactly it. The day that I have to like go through hoops to like talk to a founder, the industry is like not innovating enough anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And so
people are now defending territories.
Yeah.
Not collaborating.
Yeah, and that's in Web3, that's one of my favorite quotes. The projects that will survive and that will win in Web3 are those that can out-collaborate their competitors. Right? That's one of my favorite quotes.
That's amazing. That's really amazing.
Yeah, man. And so that's what Web3 is all about.
All the tribalism dies.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Cardano army.
Yeah.
Cardano.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're just shilling it mindlessly. It's fucking no one's building on that.
Exactly. No, I agree, man. And
Yeah.
I agree. And I think the factionism I'm not the biggest fan of. That's kind of why I see the bigger picture of how I might make a mark. Someone asked me the other day, how do I see my mark 100 years from today? Like my life, my impact. I think if I could help Web3 stay closer together and even help some companies stay closer together, founders go through disputes, and those are a lot of my clients too. To help them stay together and learn to get out of their own ways so that they can learn to collaborate more together. Like to a certain degree, I think the world could use more of that. So this being the frontier industry.
What you're saying is, I'm just cutting you off here because I think I lose the thought. What you're saying here is you want to create more Vitaliks and more Raj, more Rajes, more Gregs.
Exactly. I mean, they're there already, right? They're there. I don't even need to create them.
Yeah.
People choose the path.
The raw material is there.
The raw material is there.
Yeah, you just need to sprinkle.
I want to help mold them for the betterment of the entire ecosystem as a whole, so that people, it's in this industry you can make a lot of money in the short term and lose sight of a lot in the long run. And the impact that I can make in molding people to help them make sure that they're making good decisions when they become billionaires. If anything I say now can make an impact on them, that's the thing that's more important to me. And so that's a big part of my goal, I'd say.
So how many billionaires do you intend to create in 2023?
2023.
I'm just joking, but I'm imagining what your North Star metric would be. Like, okay, let's create a few more billionaires. Let's work with a few more people who are going to be.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Can you whisper in anyone's ear and they become a billionaire, or what happens there?
I think that's why people refer to me as a billionaire whisperer.
I mean, it's not. It's not to be taken literally, right? It's just that you find these people somewhere.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And
it's
okay, someone told you that Vitalik is the shit.
Yeah. Yes.
So this guy is the shit.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'm taking a bit of a modest approach to this because people have told me I'm too modest, right?
Yeah, you are too modest.
So
at least you can state facts.
So I can state that. Pull
them out of you.
that I can state. And I truly believe that the next set of billionaires are already out there, and I think it'd be a privilege to work with them because yes, I know I can make a difference in anyone's life, and I think for them to just show up is like the main goal. That's it. Just show up and be committed to doing the work and seeing the value in the work.
Yeah.
Then, to me, it's not about how many billionaires I can create. It's more about who they are as people when they become billionaires, right? Who they choose to give back to.
You're creating a friends network.
Yeah, seriously. It's like it's a friends network that where the entire industry can continue rising together and stay together instead of turning into oil and water, because that could easily happen. Yeah, a lot of tribalism, and that would be my goal. So the goal is for 2013. I would be grateful. I'd be really excited to work with 20 people, just 20 people that I self-select because I don't work with everyone, and I'm a little bit. I have a high bar for who I want in, and so it's all through trust and network and people that tend to reach out to me. So that would be my goal.
That's what I was thinking. Fuck, you are helping us out. You are our advisor, man. We are privileged to be in such amazing company. I never thought about this this way actually. Fuck, man.
I see it in both ways. I see it as mutual, right? I really do. I wouldn't have found you without my wife earlier, seeing the potential in you guys. And I mean it.
That's what I'm imagining. All of these logos and then Builders Tribe's logo.
Yeah.
Wow.
Builders Tribe is
that's like being in a top tier VC portfolio,
Yes,
Like, yeah.
that's having a top tier company in your portfolio. I mean that because like that was a part of my learning as well for coaching because earlier on when I was in Web3 after having worked for big projects, I would constantly be chasing to work with projects that didn't value me, right? Maybe it's a way because I didn't value myself, right? And finally I realized that thanks to my wife of like work with people where I can make a big impact where they appreciate you and value you. And that was a big part of working with Builders Tribe personally. And the relationship that I now have with you and Raghu that's just continuing to blossom, it has the potential to keep growing. Yeah. There's no force here between anything. Yeah. When I go to Bangalore, I either stay with you or Raghu. When you're in San Francisco, you stay with me, and I'd be offended if it were any other way, right? And so there is this friendship that's built. Yeah, exactly. And so it's a privilege to me to work.
That's what I'm thinking. Like that's how I'm imagining all of these things because when you meet all of these people, when you met Brian Armstrong in Bangalore, right?
Yeah.
It's impossible to meet him.
Yeah.
But and also there was no agenda that you went there with. Like it's not just because this guy is such a powerful guy. I want something from him today.
Exactly.
Just going and saying, hey, I came to say hi. How are you doing?
And he remembered.
Yeah, exactly.
He totally remembered.
That's what I thought. Like this is a very different approach.
Yeah.
See, if probably even I don't know if I were in your place or most people were in your place, they would be like, okay, now how do I extract something out of these people because I've been there for them when they were nothing, right? And that's not the approach. It's the approach more is it'll happen. And you're satisfied because
I think
your life's good.
Well, I mean, you're talking about a transactional like basis for relationships, right? And which is very much how it is in India usually. I really try not to. I mean, that was one of my blind spots is that I have been very transactional in life. And so now I'm trying to find that balance of not undervaluing myself, but not overvaluing my clients or people I'm friends with either, right? Or advising. Like that is something that I've been working to find the balance for. And so I think my current strategy, honestly, is for this upcoming bear market or that we're in already, is just to like be out there, make more friends, maybe pick up some advisory positions, and maybe even invest in projects that I work with based off of trust in the bear market, because that's when things are rough. Really? That's when we mold and bond together. And so next bull market, the next bull market, I can sit back and chill and kind of appreciate it. And as the market takes off, and kind of sit back and see the fruits of my labor of not only my companies that I invested in that I'm advising, but also to see my clients that I coach and see how they just kind of bloom.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's insane. Like wow, man, I'm like almost jealous of you. The life that you have.
Thank you.
Really.
Thanks.
The thing is that I think we all have the potential to do that. Probably I have to work through a ton of things. But it's good to know that we can do it together, and we have an example. Someone who's done it and with a lot of people. Yeah. I think that's very reassuring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, with Builders Tribe, it's simply opening the door to the valley. That's it. Like it's very simple, right? Where I am
for a lot of projects that founders that are not from the US, this means everything. This is what they gave 7% of their company for $10,000 to Y Combinator in their initial years. Y Combinator used to give $10,000 for 7%. Jeez. Imagine that.
Yeah.
And that's access to Valley. That's all.
Interesting.
And of course, Paul Graham, we can't discount that.
No. I understand. It's for access to the Valley, though, right?
Yeah,
and Paul Graham,
that's a big component of it.
Huge. Yeah. That is insane.
Yeah,
those are terrible terms for most people in the world to sign.
Yeah.
And that's I guess the demand for getting access to the valley.
Something like that,
And so yeah, no, I'm happy you brought that up because I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I think we've learned a lot about you today.
Thank you. Yeah.
We know Munjal a little better. I know you a little better than what I knew you about an hour ago. I think it's been an hour.
Yeah. Thank you. No, this is great. This is
amazing.
fun.
Amazing. We'll do more of these things.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you for doing this.
My pleasure.